Hey, welcome to the last episode of what I'm calling Stopmotion Spectacular, and I'm lucky enough to be joined by Mike Tharme. And Mike, tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, as you just rightly said, my name is Mike. I'm a stop motion master's degree student, or recently graduated student, I should say. I'm also a podcast co-host of the Missing Podcast, where we talk everything from dinosaurs, Jurassic Park, horror and creature features. But I'm also, very luckily, a ambassador for the Ray and Diana Harryhausen Foundation as of last year. So yeah, we've got a very interesting year ahead of us.
That's awesome, dude. Um, First question I'm going to hit you with is, can you
Mhm.
remember what your first exposure to stop motion cinema was, and what might have been the first movie you've seen, Harryhausen movie you've seen?
I remember everything from that period of my life, luckily enough. And I was actually bombarded with two films. Now, I can't remember which I saw first, but I vividly remember these were the first two films that I saw. So my interest in dinosaurs has spawned all the way since being born, basically. According to my mother, the first word I ever said was Brontosaurus. So her mother, when she was babysitting me, would record dinosaur films off the TV. And the first film that she ever showed me was either King Kong, the original 1933 version, or The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. It was one of those two, but I remember it was definitely those were the first two to be exposed to. And then after that, I think it was, what was it? Godzilla versus Monster Zero. So I immediately got kind of like thrown in the deep end.
Yeah, you progressed from stop motion, and you went on to the Toho creature features. That's pretty cool. I remember I remember coming across the Godzilla movies. I don't know, you being from the UK, you probably remember a TV station called Bravo.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
They had a Godzilla weekend, and I remember just fucking loving the Godzilla movies. So yeah, that's awesome. It's cool that, like, at such a young age you had the enthusiasm for what you're doing today. That not a lot of people can say I'm following my dreams from being such a young child.
Yeah.
How did you end up becoming a student of Ray Harryhausen?
So it kind of stems. I'd probably say it stems all the way from college years, actually. So after I left high school in 2000, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with myself. I enjoyed drawing. I enjoyed making models, but as far as I was aware, there was no real job opportunity for that sort of thing. So I went to art college and just basically doing the usual thing that art students do, life drawing sort of things, sculpting all sorts of crazy weird things, from visits to foreign places and what have you. And on this particular occasion, I started sculpting wire forms in the shape of fantasy creatures, and one of them happened to be a dragon. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be amazing if I could actually cover this and have it posable? And I made a small little model of this European dragon, if people want to look at a term for it, and covered it in liquid latex, and was able to pose it and took all these photographs. And my tutor came over to me and said, have you ever heard of a guy called Ray Harryhausen? I think you should look him up. And at the back of my mind, there was something that was kind of like clicking with this name, but I had no idea why. So I went on the internet, and lo and behold, his entire filmography was every single film that I have seen since the age of 4. And it was just like, I need to follow this path. I didn't know quite how to do it exactly, but I knew that I wanted to go kind of down into the filmmaking route, because when I was a kid, Jurassic Park was the big thing that came out, and that kind of instilled in me, when that was released, that I wanted to go working into films. I just didn't know where. And then when I started piecing everything to do with Ray, I thought, right, I want to go down creature features. That's where I want to go. So I went to the University of Central Lancashire for a BA degree. And in the first year that I was there, the tutors announced to us that there was an animation festival down in Bradford. And one of the guests that were going that particular year was Ray Harryhausen. And as far as I was concerned, the guy had been dead for like 20 years. So I had never heard that he was still alive. So I thought, I have to go meet him. So we went down there, and I got to introduce myself, shook his hand, usual stuff you do kind of when you first meet these like big time people. And yeah, we watched, not me and Ray, it would have been nice, but no, we didn't watch it together. So we watched King Kong on the big screen and Jason and the Argonauts, which was my first experience of watching those two films on a cinema screen as opposed to seeing them on the TV.
Nice.
And I'll tell you now, it's a completely different experience. When people say I would never go watch an old film on the cinema screens, you're missing an opportunity. It's when you see something on the small screen, you take it for granted, but then when you see it on the big screen, you get open to not just like what it would have been back in the day of seeing this film for the first time.
Whole fresh
you get
appreciation.
The whole surround screen. You get to see all the detail on the screen. It's just amazing. It's a blissful experience. So yeah, anyway, so I met Ray, got him to sign his book at the time, and then left it at that. I thought, you know what, I'm never going to get to see this guy again. That was a once in a lifetime experience. And literally, I think it was either the following year or the year after, I then met him a second time at an animation festival down in Exeter, and he sort of remembered me, which was quite interesting. I didn't have long hair at the time, so I kind of like looked like everybody else that was walking in off the streets and, oh, I'm a big fan of yours. So we got a little bit of a conversation going, and I said, okay, I'll probably see you around at some point, again thinking this was going to be the last time I'd ever get to see him again. And then a third time came up, and then a fourth, and there's just something that's just started kind of like twigging with me.
He must have thought you were stalking him.
He probably would have done, actually. I mean, the first time he kind of like saw me, it was like, oh, I remember you from last time. And then after that, it was kind of like, oh, hi, Michael. So it was getting used to me. But because there was such a big, exactly, yeah, because there was such a big distance between meeting him and then the next meeting, it was like, I'm surprised he even remembered my name, to be honest with you. But I had a feeling that he gets used to kind of people's personalities once they got talking in stuff that he would enjoy talking about. So yeah, come about 2011, I was volunteering at a animation festival at Bradford again. So the same festival that had the event with him in 2002. This would have been the animation festival, which is a bit of a sidestep, but it's all tied into the same building at the time. And a friend of mine, Steve Henderson, who now directs the Manchester Animation Festival, he mentioned to me that he'd seen this online competition to make a Harryhausen short, and the part of the prize was to go to his London house and meet him. So I thought, what can I actually do for my short film? Because I haven't really got any ideas. But someone suggested to me, well, why don't you try submitting your Wildlife on Mars idea? So back in 2005, I'd made Wildlife on Mars as a 10-minute short film, which was supposed to be something like a BBC wildlife documentary meets.
What age were you when you made that?
So what would have been? Oh, Jesus. I probably would have been about maybe 20, 21 maybe.
I was fantastic for fucking that age, though, man. Sorry, I've wrecked your train of thought. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. So I thought, right, okay, well, I suppose I could remake it, because it was a BBC style documentary, as I say, that was kind of like meets National Geographic. And there was supposed to be narration involved. There was supposed to be a flowing storyline. And I kind of bit off more than I could actually chew, because even now when I look back at it, I think the animation's nice. But if I had put the whole 10-minute animation on my YouTube channel, people would have been bored to death before even the first 5 minutes had gone past. So I just put the two what I thought were the best segments on there, just to kind of give people a bit of a sample. So I thought, okay, well, I'll rejig the story for this contest. So the brief of the contest was that you had to be somewhere between 1 minute to 3 minutes, had to be in the style of Ray Harryhausen, and had to be able to be turned into a short film. So I thought, right, okay, I can do this. Rather than concentrating on 4 separate creatures, it's going to be just 2. And rather than it being kind of like a flowing narrative that would essentially have to be told through a narrator, I'm going to do it so that it's more kind of a snapshot in time. So we're just kind of like outsiders looking in on this slice of life moment. And I submitted my entry. Panicked because everyone else started submitting their entries, and there was quite a lot of people that were getting a lot of likes, because the idea of who was going to be choosing these were I think it was like the top 5 likes from the general public. So I was scrimping and scraping for every possible person just to kind of like put the little vote on mine. And I can't remember how much I actually ended up getting in the end. But there were some questionable ideas that people had put in there for this thing. Some people had just kind of like done a copy and paste. So it's like, okay, well, we'll just take Ray Harryhausen's Cyclops and have it doing a funny jig or something like that. And, you know, that's fine for that sort of thing. But it wasn't quite, in my opinion, it just wasn't quite what the brief was asking for. And then some other people had done things that were kind of in the vein of Harryhausen, but you could tell that if this was to be stop motion, it would have been a very difficult thing to do. And then there were some really strange ones, like someone's idea of submission was little girl grows giant and then eats her father. And another one was that a woman's menstrual cycle means she's the monster.
That sounds like, you know, those crazy shorts that used to be on MTV between the music videos.
Yeah, they were just very, very questionable. It's like, do you even know who Ray Harryhausen is if you're submitting that sort? It's like, okay, yeah, but you know, each to their own. So yeah, so I submitted it. Waited for about, I think it was, I submitted it in November, and I had to wait till March the following year to hear anything back. And luckily, one of the event organizers contacted me and said, "Congratulations, Mike! You've come first place in our contest. You're going to get to come down to London to meet Ray. We're going to have a copy of your storyboard, and if you can provide your 3-minute film as well, then we'll be able to screen that at the Barbican Centre in London." So I thought, oh, fantastic, great, right, okay. You didn't mention it in the brief exactly, so I'm going to ask you now, how much money am I going to get to make this film, and how long have I got? Right, well, it's not funded, and you've got a month.
Fuck.
Nothing stop motion can be done in a month. You'd be lucky if you get a single puppet in a month, especially someone that has no equipment, no special molding facilities, no space to shoot it or anything. It's like, right, okay, well, I'll tell you this. I'll make a prototype puppet and I'll bring it down to show Ray. So they agreed on that. That's fine. Made the puppet in the space of a month. In fact, I've got the puppet here, actually. So this is what I ended up, there we go, there we go. Yeah, this is what I ended up taking to show Ray.
That is awesome.
He, as soon as I walked through the door, he went, "Oh, it's you." Like, yeah, hi, Ray.
This guy again.
Yeah. I mean, he was quite pleased that it was me, to be honest with you. I was the first one there. There was me and 2 other runner-ups, and the allocation was that we were going to be there for an hour, and he kept me there for about 3 hours. So yeah, I was the first one there, and he had a lovely chat with me. He took the puppet off me, and he was moving it left, right, and centre. He was so intrigued with it, and he was even saying things like, I really like the way that you've sculpted the legs. It shows the muscle tone and definition. And there was a part of me that was just dying inside, because like, no, I wanted to say, like Willis said to you about your legs being like sausages. I want that as a carryover. So yeah, so we had a lovely long chat. He was asking me things about how I made the puppet, and then he would say things like, you know, well, when I was at your age, I was using copper to mix in with the aluminium, so the wire would last a little bit longer. He was encouraging me to go with ball and socket armatures as well, because he thought that because of the complexity of this particular puppet, he was afraid that the wire would break. And he wanted to actually see that the puppet last for the duration of the film. And yeah, at the end of the meeting with him, I went over to shake his hand, and he kind of like clasped my hand with his other, and kind of like said to me, "I wish I'd met you decades ago, because I would love to have known you for longer." And it was just kind of like, oh wow, I you know, when you just kind of meet people and you just kind of get this impression that you're more bothering them than you are them to be in your friend circle, sort of thing. That moment, it was just almost like the penny just dropped. It just dropped for me. And in fact, one of the things he said to me just before I was ready to leave, he said, "As soon as you finish the film, let me know, and then you can come back down and watch it with me." Because he used to have a projector in one of his living rooms, so he could actually watch films on bigger screens. And yeah, so I was like, getting back to the hotel, I was pumped, I was hyped. I remember writing a little diary entry in my Facebook 3am Creations page, I was just so happy about the whole thing. So I thought, right, okay, I'm on job seekers at the moment. I'm going to go up to the job centre. I'm going to explain this whole situation, that I've had this amazing opportunity presented to me, and I've got to make this film. Otherwise, it's not going to allow me to progress on to the things that I want to do and come off job seekers. And as soon as I got into Chorley, they sat me down and they said, right, Mr. Tharme, so what have you been up to? And I said, oh, I've had an amazing weekend. I've just come back from London. I've just met my all-time animation hero. He's really looking forward to seeing the film, and I've got a gut feeling this is actually going to take me places. So if it's okay with you, I'll still keep doing the job hunts, but I'd rather be focusing getting the job seekers so I can invest it into this project to further my career. And her response was to me was, but animation as a career is a hobby. You need to get a real job.
Oh.
And I've never felt, I mean, I've had situations before now where it's been almost like a kick in the gut or a kick in the teeth sort of scenario where you just kind of like want to curl up into a little ball and just smack the floor a little bit. That was probably the one occasion where I felt like my whole world had just been shattered into pieces, because it was like, right, okay, no one outside of animation believes that I can do this. All they care about is just pigeonhole me into a slot and then just moving on to Joe Blogs to do the next thing. So I ended up getting a full-time job at Poundland, which was really helping my mental health situation. And then I also got a part-time.
Retail is torture. 15 years of retail, dude. No, fuck that.
No, especially when anything that you suggest doesn't get taken on board, anything you do isn't appreciated, and then anything you don't do is immediately something to be yelled at, as opposed to
working retail is the graveyard of ambition and creativity.
Yeah. I can fully agree with that. So I got a part-time job at a scare attraction in Blackpool by the name of Passage del Terror. So I would do literally like a Sunday to Monday in Chorley, travel 2 hours back to Blackpool and go live with my girlfriend, who's now the wife, luckily enough. And then do my Tuesday hours at Passage del Terror, and then be back on the bus from Wednesday to Friday, all the way back at Chorley again. And I remember sitting on the bus from Chorley and literally getting a message off the same friend that told me about the contest in the first place. And he said, are you sitting down, Mike? I've got some really unfortunate news for you. And I had a feeling it'd be something animation related, because normally that's what he tends to message me about, but I was not expecting the following message after that, which was to say that Ray had passed away. And yeah, at that point I felt someone had just ripped a huge chunk of my life out of me,
like a gut punch.
More than a gut punch. When your favorite person has died, whether it be family or a close friend or someone that you idolize, and you just feel like your rib cage has been ripped open, someone's just pulled your heart out and then just crushed it in front of your eyes. That's what it felt like for me. And I had to fight back, bursting out into tears on a bus for 2 hours. And as soon as I walked through my house door, I just collapsed on the floor and I just broke into tears. So I just could not believe that this opportunity that had been presented to me had just been snatched away. I mean, I'd have been speaking to him over the phone about 3 or 4 times in that space of the year, but it's a different feeling when you're speaking to someone over the phone, especially where the conversations that we would have, he would ask about how Wildlife on Mars was doing, and I was saying, oh, still nothing, unfortunately. I'm still trying to save up for equipment and for this and for that. And he'd be like, oh, don't worry, you'll get there eventually. And he was really forgiving with it, but there's a part of me that wishes that if people had just allowed me to do what I wanted to do in the first place, I might not be the person who I am today. I might be someone that's better than I am today. But yeah, it was a heartbreaking moment for me, and every day after that, it's been an uphill struggle trying to get this project off the ground, basically. And then it wasn't till after doing an animation stint in Ireland at the Telegales in Spiddle that I thought, right, you know what, I need to do a master's degree to get this film made. There's no other way that that I'm going to be able to do it. I've tried funding bodies. No one's interested unless it's a children's TV series or unless there's going to be an investment return. I've tried going through, like I said before, in terms of our chat before this started, that it was going through like the GoFundMe and the Indiegogo and what have you, but the foundation wouldn't allow any publicly funded films to be donated to their archive because they're a charity.
Yeah.
So this would be stuck between a rock and a hard place. How am I going to get money without it being directly funded to the project whilst still being able to do the things that I want to do? So I thought, yeah, if I do a master's degree, then at least then I can, the money that I get from my degree, I can put that towards equipment, I can put it towards materials. I might struggle for everything else for a bit, but it's worth the hassle. So for the past 2 years, I've been working on this project, and it's had its ups and downs. I've had a lot of mental health issues along the way, unfortunately. But you know, I'm about 3 minutes into animation at the moment. I've still got another 3 minutes to do once I can actually get back into university again. So no, it should be good, hopefully.
No, fair play to you, because again, I had started off doing comic writing, and I'd gotten so far, but just it's hard to stick with something when the world is telling you that this isn't the norm, this isn't a way to make money, and it kind of it does wear you down. But the fact you stuck with it, I have to give you props for that. My next question would be, what entails being an ambassador for the Ray and Diana Harryhausen Foundation? What does it entail?
So let's put it this way: it's not going to make me a millionaire overnight. Let's put it that way. But no, it's basically because I've been so good with the foundation over the past number of years. I've spoken to all the trustees. I've been helping out at events. And what an ambassador basically does, it's almost like an extension of what the trustees are already doing, which is promoting and speaking about Ray in a positive light, which is what I would do anyway. Not only did I idolize the guy, but everything that he created from his very first animations to the last thing he ever animated, I think is very important to be not only just kept alive for the next set of generations, but it's something to learn from, so that people aren't just retreading over the same films and methods from the 70s and the 80s. There are techniques and principles that he used back in the 40s that I think benefit students, especially in today's environment, just as much as what they would have done here back in the day. So part of my master's degree was to actually look at Ray's early career. So back when he started watching King Kong and everything in '33, up until his first colour feature in the 50s. So what I decided to do with the foundation was to kind of like delve into various books and things that he's speaking to, speak to various members from the trustees, so that I can get a more personal, in-depth idea of what he was like as an individual, because of course I only met him on so many occasions, and speaking to him over the phone only does so much, and everything else after that is either interviews or just kind of like ad lib video recordings of him walking around festivals on YouTube. So it's the idea of an ambassador, and I'm not just the only one. There's a second one as well by the name of Angus Lamont. He's also based in Glasgow as well. So what we do is we will reshare content from the foundation, but if we happen to find anything that we think is of interest, we tend to promote that as well. And if we think it has anything relevant to various universities and so forth, then we'll make sure that students are aware of these sort of things and push them. And it also comes with perks as well, that when there's an event coming up, we normally get a phone call saying, we'd like you to come down to this and help out. Do you want to come down? So it has some perks.
Cool. Question 5. This is a bit of a twofer, because you're as you said, you're a member of the Missing Compy podcast.
Yeah,
so
that's right,
you're obviously an avid Jurassic Park fan.
Yes.
Do you think Jurassic Park would have been as popular if they had stuck with Phil Tippett's stop motion? I know it's a weird question to ask, but
it is and it isn't. It is in the sense that whenever people say look at the stop motion that was going to be used for Jurassic Park, they immediately go to the one with the T-Rex and the raptors and the T-Rex walk cycle. And what people don't quite realize is that's not the final animation of what people would expect to see on the screen. What those are animated animatics, effectively. So it gives the CG animators something to work against. The stop motion that was used, however, is the stuff that they did with the DIDs, with the T-Rex breakout scene and some of the raptors in the kitchen. So
I remember the raptor in the kitchen one. He was criticized because did he give the raptor serpentine tongues? Did he give them
yeah, so Tippett, because he knew that they were genetic hybrids, he gave them the lizard flicking tongue. But Jack Horner saw the footage and basically said, no, raptors would never do that in real life. And this is where kind of like there's a bit of a contradiction between what they're saying now about the dinosaurs, as opposed to back in '93, because they were always, these are real dinosaurs that are just genetically created, whereas now everyone's saying, oh no, they were never true dinosaurs in the first place. But when you've got someone like Jack Horner saying, but they would never do that tongue flicking thing in reality, well then it's like, but if we kept it in, then that would have had more solidified
that these were aberrations. These were clones. They were hybridized from other things.
Yeah.
And like as you said, the new movie rectifies it. As Henry Wu says, none of the animals in Jurassic Park are natural.
Yeah, exactly. So when people, like I said, when people think of the stop motion that they could have had, what they don't realize, like I say, is that those animations that you see online are purely animatics. They're not the final animation. I mean, if you look at some of the footage from Phil's other work, like Willow, and RoboCop, and heck, even like what do you call it now, Prehistoric Beast online, there's a different quality to the film that he uses compared to the stuff in Jurassic Park. So they'll use old film stock. It won't quite get properly developed, so everything will look slightly off. I mean, even if you look at some of the puppets, I mean, there's a shot where the T-Rex is looming over Alan Grant once he's moving the flare around, and the teeth are just kind of like pushing the lower lip down, and it looks really goofy and awkward. But it's like, if you think that's what they're going to put in the final film, you're
absolutely again, it was like a maquette, like a test, as you said. It was exactly, a test feature.
Yeah. So the answer to the question is, we work or not. I think it might have done. The only thing is, though, is that I've read the original script, which we've read out loud on the Missing Compy podcast, that would have, at the time, been the script that would have used a lot of the stop motion photography. And from the stuff that they were putting in for these dinosaurs to do, a majority of this stuff would have been absolutely fine. But there was some stuff that would have been really difficult to do. I think at that point, they were still having the T-Rex swimming in the lake. Now, if this is going to be a stop motion T-Rex, you've got a water element put in there, which you can't do in stop motion. So do you use something else? Do you shoot it in a particular way? Do you do kind of like when dinosaurs will rule the earth and it's like a live action water shot with a puppet coming on the mind? It's a very, very complicated thing to do. So I don't know what they would have planned to have done with that. But shots like that would have made it more costly to do for stop motion than it would do for doing it as a practical effect. And again, I don't even think Stan Winston was on at that point either. So again, the practical effects they were going to be using were a completely different ball game compared to what they have for the Stan Winston stuff. Yeah. So I think in part of it might have worked, but it's one of those alternative reality questions. We'll never know.
Okay. So my last question is basically more of an in-depth dive into your project, Wildlife on Mars. You explained that it was originally your own project, and then you used it for the entry into the. What was the inspiration for it initially? A documentary. Yes.
So back in the day, I remember thinking from a final year project, right, I need to come up with something different, something that speaks to me, something that reflects me, but then also something that I'm going to enjoy. And everyone was doing, the next Wallace and Gromit, the next Morph, the next, who's a good example? Chicken Run. There we go. So I didn't want to go down that route. I don't mind sort of like cartoon and caricature type animation. But when you look at it in the grand scheme of things of what's everyone else doing in terms of studios and students, everyone else is doing the same thing. So there's nothing unique there anymore.
It's all cartoon animals and kind of Henry Selick.
Exactly. It's all creature comforts. It's all chicken run. It's all Wallace and Gromit. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm never going to say to people, well, you shouldn't do that for X, Y, and Z reason. But what they do need to think about is when you look at it back in the late 80s, early 90s, very few people were doing that. Whereas now it's the opposite effect. You've got every person doing that. So what might have been a special thing back in the late 80s is now no longer special. It might be just the needle in the haystack that you end up looking for. And there's only so many people that are going to go looking for that type of talent. So I wanted to do something that I thought would reflect me. And I've always liked dinosaurs. I've always wanted to do a stop motion dinosaur. So I thought, why not? I'll just do dinosaurs. But I needed a spin on it. I needed something to be edgy about it, something that hadn't been seen before, something that would get people's attention and make you think, oh, actually, he's really good. Not just the hopefully animation, but in terms of the design sense, the set building sense, everything that's different about it. And at the time, I think there was a couple of news articles that were coming out about Mars having water or something like that. It must have been around 2004, 2005. And I thought, yeah, dinosaurs on Mars, but in the prehistoric sense, not in a they're still there and we're just not looking in the right cave sort of thing.
What if the planet had been habited back in the
Exactly. And I just ran with it and just came up with all sorts of crazy ideas. Of the idea being mostly kind of like, right, okay, take something recognizable and then change it drastically into something else. So this character, the very first interpretation of this, because this is technically the second variation of it, I wanted something that reflected the bite of a T-Rex, so that's why he has these like parrot tusks type incisor jaws. And I wanted it also to be something that was recognizable to children, so it was going to have the two smaller arms at the front that would act like the smaller arms of a T-Rex, but also reflect in the John Carter of Mars story.
I was just about that. Was that a reference to the bassoon that they have
with the four arms? Yes, exactly that. So I started kind of like elaborating on those sort of concepts really, and just kind of like taking different creatures and merging them together. I actually came up with, I think it's ended up being something like 150 different designs of creatures that I could do. But I knew I was never going to be able to make 150 creatures. But I thought, well, actually, if it ever turns into a project, then you could create all these different creatures.
That guy's awesome, but the ceratopsian creature you made, I absolutely adored. Is it a kind of you're playing a pachyrhinoceros or
no? It's actually a splice between a triceratops and an Asterotherium, which is like a two-horned prehistoric rhino.
Yeah, I actually was that creature was originally going to be in King Kong in the log section.
Yeah,
then
that's right. Yeah.
Willis O'Brien said no one recognizes what it is, so we'll use a Striachosaur. Then they removed it, and then he ended up in Son of Khan, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. In fact, when I showed Ray the storyboard as well, he as soon as he saw that creature, he was like, "Oh, it's a cross between a Triceratops and an Asterotherium," and I was like, "Yes, he got it!" Because everyone else is kind of like, "Oh, it's the Triceratops." It's like, "No, it's got the two horns. It's got dual horns." So I was so chuffed when he said that. It was one of the best moments of my life. That. So we back in 2005, as I said, we were getting all these different creatures, making them together. Made them up out of foam latex, animated them with the wire armatures, and the two clips that are on YouTube are the original footage as well. So it's a little bit grainy because the cameras that we had at the time weren't fantastic, but no, it was a fun project to do. And it wasn't until, like I say, 2011 when I decided to redesign the whole idea of it. That I then started to think, right, okay, I need to start simplifying this. I need to, because at the time it was like they were going to move from location to location to location, whereas now I needed to keep it all isolated in one location. And the creatures' designs need to be a little bit more easier to recognize and a little bit more mainstream as well, as opposed to the stuff that I was doing where it was all smooth skinned and relying pretty much on the way I was painting them to give the impression that there was texture there. So it was a uphill learning curve for a majority of it, especially when it came to building ball and socket armatures properly for the first time. That was a massive learning curve. But doing a stint at Animation Toolkit, which is the company that originally made Harryhausen, what were they called now? Armor Creature kits back in 2000s. He gave me a pack to try, and I absolutely loved the product. And then he brought me on to work on a film called Chuck Steel Night of the Trampires, where we had to make something like 270 odd armatures in the space of like 4 or 5 months.
What kind of creatures were they?
So they were basically drunk vampires. So that the story for that film is that Dracula and his wife ended up being kicked out of Transylvania, becoming drunk hobos on the street, but then every time they bit somebody, they would also turn into drunk hobos. Vampires. Yeah, exactly. So it's like the whole film is just literally drunk vampires that eat people. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And to be honest with you, Mike Moore, who directed that feature, he's done quite a few other projects. Do you remember Gogs from the early 2000s?
Yes.
Yeah, he made that as well.
I remember how rude it was, and I remember how it was very on the nose with some of its humor. I remember that.
No, his humor is pretty weird, but it's bloody hilarious. So yeah, it's his baby project, really. So yeah, it was good to be working on that.
One scene I remember was that the family of cave people are like fucking, they're dying of starvation, and just their look, this brontosaurus just like keels over dead next to him, and I was like, that's gold.
No, so it was good. It was a good project. So like I said, learning how to do those armatures for that project really kind of spurred me on to do the armature for this project as well. And it actually got me to start rethinking about stuff in the way of how to build an armature, because the majority of armatures that are made today, unless they're specially requested, no one does like anything that's not human or humanoid in shape. Everything is pretty much a standard, right? You get 2 legs, 2 arms, no head, and that's the gist of it. So very few people out in my age group, at least anyway, will venture into doing something that's more kind of theropod in design, or a quadruped that isn't a dog, or even someone's flying as well, like a pterodactyl.
Basically, unless it's kind of a standardized domesticated animal, you don't really get quadrupeds or any kind of I can see how that becomes problematic.
Yeah, I mean, there are people out there that do this sort of thing. I mean, there's a guy in Australia called Nick Hilligos. He does stuff. There's a guy in the States, Ron Cole. He does it as well. There's a guy in Scotland at the moment who's making a film called Dark Earth that is literally nothing but stop motion dinosaurs and creatures and that sort of thing. So there are people that are still doing that, but they're all kind of like under the radar, niche sort of. Unless you know what you're looking for, you're not going to find them otherwise. It's a bit of a shame, really, but hopefully there are people like me and them that are still doing this sort of thing that will still keep things going alive. And hopefully, if this new Harryhausen film comes off, then we'll be all chipping in to work on that as well.
I've a couple of people in the chat. Do you mind if I see if they have any questions? Would you be?
Yeah, sure. By all means, bring them in.
Okay. So, has anyone in the chat any questions for Mike? If so, leave them in the chat, and I'll convey them to him. I think we've some shy people here, but
no, there's always the shy one, isn't it? If it helps, because you're online, it doesn't matter. You don't have to give your name. You just say, "Is Michael blah da 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 da?"
Yeah. While I'm waiting, Mike, is there any way that people can again, as you said, financially you're not looking for anything for Wildlife on Mars, but is there any way it can be promoted? Is there anything people can do?
So the stuff on Instagram and Facebook, Twitter, that I post quite regularly. So you can find stills from the original film that I've been working on. There's going to be a trailer hopefully dropping on the 29th of June for Ray's birthday, because there was supposed to be a full-on feature, which obviously because of coronavirus, all that's been kind of like thrown in the wind. And there's also going to be a poster that's going to be dropped soon, hopefully. So yes, you keep your eyes out for those and share those to everywhere that you can think of: Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, doesn't matter, as long as people can still trace it back to me and make sure that they know it's me, because I've had one person before now trying to pass off one of my armatures as his own, and it's like, no, you didn't make that, think I did. So yeah,
we have a question here from a friend of mine, Jennifer Tochi. She says, how long did it take to make the hardest creature you constructed? What was the most difficult, and what was the length of time?
I would probably say it would have to be this guy. Because if we're talking construction armatures that work, he's had the most replacements. The first version was a wire armature, which was great, but then started breaking. This is a second interpretation that ended up breaking in the neck during one of the animation tests. The third version was too big, and I can show you the size differences between puppets actually. So that's one, and that's two. Just give me a second. There we go. Yeah, so that was the third interpretation skull that was going to go in the armature, but it was too big. So I had to downsize it to this.
Whoa!
So the massive difference between the two. So this is the 4th generation armature. So if you're talking in terms of like armatures from start to finish, that's probably taken about 3 years to get it right. But if you're talking from the start of a project to the end of a project, then probably the longest one was about maybe 2 months. And that's because I hadn't done anything with it before.
How have you not? I'm amazed you have such long hair. I'm amazed you haven't fucking pulled it out. A friend of mine in the chat, Jason, who's a fantastic car YouTuber, he says your work is amazing. He says,
oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
But come here, I'm probably going to wrap up things. Guys, if you want to see more of Mike, a friend of mine, James, interviewed him over on his channel as well. And I'm going to leave a link to Mike's Twitter and YouTube channel. The guy's an absolute gent. If you get a chance, check it out. He's plugging the stuff there, but I'll plug it below. But Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege to talk to you, dude.
Not a problem at all. I'm always happy to come on as well and talk anything stop motion, Jurassic, anything like that again.
Well,
and in fact,
I know
one more thing before I go. If people have seen the latest Harryhausen book that came out, the Lost Projects book, or Lost Worlds, I think it might have been, I can't remember the title now. I did a colorized version of one of Ray's original 1 million years BC posters that he had designed in the 60s. So there's a comparison shot between his original pencil drawing and my final digital rendition of it. And I'm proud of it. I'm really happy that the foundation asked me to do it. And there was actually another post that they asked me to do, but I didn't have time to do it because I was on my master's degree. But no, if you go and buy that book, you'll be technically owning an original Tharme redesign.
Nice. No, Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thanks a million for taking time out of your schedule to do this interview. And thanks to everyone who tuned in. Thanks Jennifer, Jason, and Phil. Thanks so much, and yeah, check this guy out because he's an absolute fucking legend. And stay awesome, guys. Take care. Bye now.
Say now. Bye.